Mdumiseni Ntuli, who is the Provincial Secretary of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, joins me now from our Durban studio. Mr. Ntuli, good evening. Thank you very much for your time. Now, the purpose of the meeting that took this decision, your statement says, was, and I quote, to receive and consider a detailed report of the Provincial Working Committee on the state of local government in KwaZulu-Natal. In other words, am I right in saying that the decision that was taken had nothing to do with the allegations of corruption and fraud that have been leveled against Mayor Zandile Gumede in her case?
Well, thank you very much. Good evening, Vuyo, and the viewers of ENCA. Firstly, you are quite correct in that analysis. The PwC made a very extensive assessment of the state of municipalities in our province. And this assessment was essentially occasioned by a lot of complaints and concerns expressed by our people during our door-to-door campaign leading to the national general elections, where they pointed out to a number of weaknesses and deficiencies in our municipalities, which undermine the capacity of the very same institutions that are made to service our people and ensure that the task of building a better life become a reality. So we took a decision that we took yesterday on the basis of that assessment, and that is why the decision did not only affect municipalities where there are comrades who are in conflict with the law, but it also included municipalities like uMsunduzi, where there is nobody who's arrested among the leadership that will be redeployed, and we were really basing our intervention on the scientific work we've done and the findings which were beyond reproach and accepted by both the Provincial Executive Committee and the comrades who are deployed in the two municipalities.
Meaning, if there were no service delivery issues or matters raised by the Auditor General and the whole list of other reasons you are mentioning, the fact that the mayor herself, in the case of eThekwini, is facing fraud and corruption allegations would not have been a good enough reason for you to do what you've just done.
We have been very careful in dealing with matters relating to the court cases against our comrades who are deployed as councillors, whether they are ordinary councillors or they are mayors, as the case may be. And the reason why we adopted a very cautious approach is the recent experience where some of our comrades would be arrested, they would be kept in custody, others for a period of a year, a period of 6 months, a week, a weekend, and later on they are released. And when they are released, charges have either not been preferred or charges are provisionally withdrawn. So our approach as the PC was that we must be thorough in our approach, we must be very careful, and we must ensure that whenever a decision has to be as a consequence of the comrade being arrested, we would have done everything that was possible and rational for us to take that decision. But at this stage, we're not there. At this stage, we're still dealing with the assessment of the cases that are currently ongoing, affecting few of our comrades. But the decision is primarily about the need to ensure that there is a turnaround, not only in the quality of services delivered on the ground, but in terms of effectiveness and efficiency.
Now, you list a whole set of observations that you made before you actually took this decision, among them challenges with regard to capacity to raise revenue, lack of proper planning, inability to use municipal grants, and so on. Let's take the eThekwini municipality as a starting point. Did Mayor Zandile Gumede and her executive get an opportunity to respond to any of the allegations that were made against them, or the incapacity that they may have displayed in the running of the eThekwini municipality?
Well, Vuyo, I can assure you and the viewers of ENCA, the process we undertaken was essentially not a witch hunt in its character, in its essence. What we initially did was that we had an interaction, an extensive interaction through the LNG subcommittee of the Provincial Executive Committee with individual municipalities on the basis of the performance, the functionality, and the challenges on the ground. Once that report was compiled, it was brought back to the Provincial Working Committee, having incorporated into that report the submissions that were made by the leadership of the various municipalities. Then the Provincial Working Committee convened what many people felt was the longest meeting of the ANC in the province, a week-long meeting, where we will sit in front as a leadership of the Provincial Working Committee, invite the mayor, the mayors, as well as the ESCO members in all municipalities, and where possible, even the city managers, and say to them, you are running the municipality that you inherited 2.5 years ago. When you got this municipality, this is the level at which it was in terms of its performance, its ability to provide services, including the public perception on the efficiency and the effectiveness of the institution. Our analysis now, and this is the evidence before you, is that the situation has declined and is rapidly declining, which is impacting not only on the confidence of the people into the leadership of the municipality, but affecting the reputation of the lead of the National Democratic Revolution, which is the African National Congress.
But what was the response of your deployees to the information you put before them, to your analysis? What was their response? What were the reasons they were giving for what has become of these municipalities?
In the final analysis, all of them conceded to the fact that the issues we're raising are real, they've happened. What then ended up being an observation that we made is that either the administration will have certain issues that are blamed to the political leadership, or the political leadership will have certain issues that are blamed in the inefficiencies and defects within the administration. Now, our view was that if as a political leadership we have identified that there were defects and weaknesses within the administration, what did you do? Because these administrators are employed and accountable for you. You are deployed and accountable to us as a Provincial Executive Committee. If you have not acted on those who are reporting to you, in our own view, in our own analysis, we are an accomplice in the problem, in the challenges that are confronting the municipality. We are now compelled to act on you. Because if we don't act on you, we are equally responsible for the challenges and the weaknesses that are continuing to inflict many of our municipalities.
Now, we've seen the public spectacle playing itself out, often playing itself out whenever Mayor Zandile Khumede appeared in court. And her supporters have already said that they're seeing a witch hunt here, and you are trying to solve political battles. Now, if, as you have just said, she appeared before you and she did admit that she didn't quite do what was expected of her. What is your plan then to really engage with those who may still think that this is nothing but an attempt to actually get rid of her? How are you going to deal with whatever fallouts that may come?
You see, firstly, the decisions we have made are quite profound. And the first thing that the Provincial Working Committee will be doing over the next few days is to evolve a very elaborate program of engagement with various sectors of society, the religious leaders, the business community, the structures of the ANC, NGOs and churches. Firstly, to communicate to them in no uncertain terms that we've taken these decisions because we're acting in the best interest of the people of the two cities that are involved, and that we're committed to ensure that anything and everything that we do represent the best interest of our people. We believe that those who have defined themselves as supporters of this or the other comrades, including Comrade Zandile Khumede, who fortunately in the meeting with the provincial leadership this morning indicated her acceptance of the decision for redeployment without any conditions, and she made it very clear that anybody who's taking to the street now and before has done so or will be doing so without her own consent and without her own mandate. And we would like to say to members of the ANC who may be uncomfortable, angry, and tempted to go to the street that they shouldn't do that. There's no need to do that because Comrade Zandile has accepted the decision of our movement, and all of us must abide by the decision of the ANC and make sure that we do not create a perception of some kind of a Zandile exceptionalism in KwaZulu-Natal, that when you recall a particular comrade, there will be this kind of an exceptionalism which allows people to act in a manner that undermines the fundamental principles of the organization they belong to.
So she won't be appealing the decision at all?
No, there's no decision to be appealed. She's a deployed cadre of our movement, very seasoned, having been to the ANC for many years, I think for decades, in fact. And I mean, when we had the meeting in the morning, Vuyo, it was a cordial session with our own comrades. They understood that if there was any moment where the ANC takes decision on the basis of a process that was elaborate, comprehensive, and for which everybody contributed equally to its conclusion, it was the one that made us to arrive at a decision yesterday. And we left very jovial. We were excited that all of us are moving in the same direction about where our province must be and how should we confront and deal with the challenges facing our people. Because what we care about is an ordinary person in the street in eThekwini and Pietermaritzburg who are expecting decent service delivery, the provision of houses, the creation of jobs, and a clear strategy to address the question of water shortages.
Where are you deploying them to?
Well, for now, the redeployment that we have communicated to them is that before you become a mayor or you assume a responsibility of being an ESCO member or a speaker or anything like that, you obviously have to be a councillor. And to be a councillor on its own is an important task, it's a deployment. And we said to them, moving forward, at this stage, you will all be expected to remain loyal members of the ANC deployed in the various councils where you are, whether you are in eThekwini or in Pietermaritzburg, in uMsunduzi. And the movement would expect you to perform your responsibilities at that level. Whenever in future there is something else that is considered to be of necessity for any of them to be deployed to, that decision will be made by the leadership of the organization.
But why would you keep them in the municipality or deploy them to the provincial legislature, as some speculation has gone? I mean, how can they play any oversight role if they have failed dismally to a point of having to remove them?
Well, Vuyo, I think the answer to that question lies on the fact that you see, Vuyo, I think firstly I have a sense that your question is predicated on the wrong assumption. It assumes that if you can't do the work that we are doing now in the interview you are having with me, if you can't be an anchor of ENCA, therefore we can be nothing within NCAA, and we don't think that is the case. You may not be equal to the task of handling the interviews with your guest, like myself or anybody else, and I'm not saying that is the case, but I'm saying you may not be able to do that work effectively and in accordance with the expectation of your supervisors. But it doesn't mean that there's nothing you can still do within the same institution.
But what other role is there in, I mean, if you are a councillor, you have to play your oversight role?
Yes, you have to play the oversight role, but if you are a mayor, if you are a deputy mayor, you are not only playing the oversight role, but you have a leadership responsibility to ensure that those who are playing the oversight role discharge their responsibilities in accordance with the manifesto of the ANC, and most importantly, the expectations of the great masses of our people. So, and if you're an ordinary councillor, there is lesser burden of work on you if you compare with the person who's a mayor, a deputy mayor, or a speaker for that matter.
Mr. Ntuli, thank you very much for your time. He is the Provincial Secretary of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. And listening in on that conversation was political analyst Professor Siba Tefu, who joins us from our Pretoria studio. Prof, good evening. Thank you very much for your time. Just what you make overall of what the Provincial Secretary of the ANC was telling us there.
Look, Vuyo, I heard only the last minute or so of what you are saying, but that is not that I cannot comment, because I heard him throughout the afternoon speaking to a number of issues. I think it was one of the leading gurus of political theory, Amel Cabral, who said, "Tell no lies and claim no easy victories." You cannot talk sacking and deployment at the same time. You cannot say you are holding an executive position, but you are now being taken to a lower position where you were before you were elevated, yet it is not a demotion. In the afternoon, that debate also was serious, and I have a sense that there is too much political verbiage without substance. The bottom line is a decision was taken, but it's not consistent with the document called through the eye of the needle. It's not consistent with the decisions taken that if you are found to be at least in a very compromising position that is impacting the organization, you'll be asked to step aside. He's not talking to us about the court cases that the people are faced with and that they are on bail right now, but rather it's like there was a performance appraisal based on that, then the people were found wanting, therefore they are being redeployed and not being sacked or relieved of their responsibilities.
And it is for that reason, Prof, that Zandile Gumede's supporters in particular are saying there's more to this than meets the eye. It's got nothing to do with any form of appraisal that may have been done, and no matter how long it may have taken, the week that the provincial secretary of the ANC was talking about.
Yes, indeed. From what I gather is that Madam Gumede is not a political lightweight. At issue here is how to balance the factional battles without impacting seriously on the fragile unity project the president of the ANC is working on. You want to fire without firing. You want to redeploy, but without imputing a negative or non-performance on the part of the people. To the extent possible, you want to massage their egos. They are not as bad as the people think. But I say long-term, the court of public opinion certainly is not going to look with favor at the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal and at the ANC in general. And I'm not even surprised by this decision, by the way.
Well, on the other hand, is there no great deal of positivity that should perhaps be, seen here? Because, I mean, it's not often, well, we've hardly had instances where the ANC comes out of a meeting and boldly asserts that we've done an appraisal, and on the basis of the work we did, we believe that these comrades are not up to the job. Should we not perhaps see this as a precedent-setting move that can only be good for everybody?
Tell no lies, Vuyo, and claim no easy victories. If that was done prior to her appearing in court, it was a genuine performance appraisal, then I would give them credit for that. I would say kudos to them. But you and I know, as the public does right now, that that was not the case. They are trying to deal and to contend with a political situation that is very fragile and indeed very, very mercurial. They don't know how to handle it without really worsening or widening the wedge that exists between the parties. But if you want to say to me, half a loaf is better than nothing, well and good, I'll give them credit for that and say, well, they have done something. But remember, they have pitched, right, the probity that should befit people who hold office. And if you listen to Ntuli, I think he's almost babbling about the extent to which they should be credited for the brave stance taken in this regard. But, well, maybe for others, certainly not for me. Had it been done prior to, I would have said, yes, it is a genuine move. But, okay, it might send a good signal to others. Indeed, I would support that view also, that others would now realize action can be taken, never mind how less impactful, but at least something positive came. Yeah, grant them that. Grant them that.
You don't think that they may have learned from such incidents as that of former President Jacob Zuma, who, whenever he gets an opportunity, doesn't forget to tell whoever is interested in listening to his story that he still, to this day, he still doesn't know why he was fired as president of the country?
I am sympathetic to that view. Remember, President Zuma made that statement. He didn't pick it out of, he didn't manufacture the statement. Those who announced to him that he should step down, they said, we don't have the reasons to tell you why you should go, but you must go. People must go and listen to the tapes and what was written. They could not disclose to him. They could not look him in the eye and say, for these reasons you must step down. He kept saying to them, what have I done? Tell me what I've done. To date, they haven't told the president, former President Zuma, what he has done wrong. Yeah. You and I may have our own views, but he has got reason. They owe him an explanation.
Yeah, which then, in all probability, I'm not saying that's certainly what will happen, will make it a bit more difficult for a Zandile Gumede to say no one was honest with him in the first place, no one, with her, sorry, and no one told her that you messed up, which is what the president, the former president, is actually able to do. In this instance, you had the provincial secretary of the ANC saying, we sat there, we went through what has happened over the past 2 years or so in that municipality, and we all came to one conclusion that your municipality is in a worse situation than it was when you take over, and she did accept that with all the buts and ifs that she may have put on the table. But at the end of it all, she did accept that things weren't quite what didn't go the way her organization that deployed her there expected of her.
Yes, indeed. I mean, Mr. Ntuli is getting the issue of the cat case because he has got the political courage to speak the language he's supposed to. I mean, that's why I'm talking about political verbiage that is of no substance in the circumstances. Because Madam Gumet tomorrow might come back to say, but you have never given me sufficient reason. And if indeed I was not performing well, why did it come as a result of the pressure that was mounted at the time it did, went all along your head? And indeed, let's just take, in terms of HR, procedures and policies, did they follow the right procedure? Because this seems to have been a political process. But then she can say performance appraisal should be done through another process. And there, on a technicality, she might still win. But all things being equally good, let's say, well, they've taken action, never mind how weak it might be in other people's assessment, and it might be a good signal that is the beginning of the good things to come. The ANC has found the courage of its own conviction to act against misdemeanor and malfeasance, and it might put them back on the right trajectory.
Prof, that's where we're going to leave it this evening. Thank you very much for your time, Eunice, our political analyst from the University of South Africa. Not quite buying the explanation that is being given by the ANC for redeploying eThekwini Mayor Zandile Gumede and uMsunduzi Mayor Themba Njilo, as well as their respective executives.